always trying to figure out how you can improve yourself because, well, what else is there? It's sitting still isn't really in my nature. So you have to advance because everybody else is.
Jon Groth, welcome to the You Are Lawyer podcast. How are you?
I'm great. Thanks for having me.
Yeah, of course, of course. So we were chatting a little bit offline because I'm in Columbus, Ohio. You're in Wisconsin, is that correct?
I am in Milwaukee, Wisconsin.
Okay.
Correct.
I want to know all about you. So what do you do typically? What's a typical day like for you working as a lawyer in Wisconsin?
Boy, great question. Right now I have three screens I'm looking at. So I'll tell you just real time. I have three screens and two piles of paper. I have one screen as my emails, and I'm going through my email tasks. My other screen, we use a case management system called FileVine. So I
Okay.
have my FileVine project hub and feed up so I can track all the different files that, people that we're helping. And then the next screen is you. So I'm looking at you. Usually this would be my teams and then chatting with people in our team. So
Okay.
we're a personal injury law firm based in Milwaukee, but I have team members who are in other states, who are working remote, who are in other countries. I have VAs in Mexico and the Philippines. And then my piles of paper, I have one pile is our law firm financials that we always have to keep a handle on. And then the next pile that I just threw over there is all of demands. So demands off to insurance companies where we're demanding that they compensate our clients. So that's it. That's all I'm doing today is just and that's my typical day. We had a new law clerk start today, so we met with her, kind of talked about what the law is about and what today's practice meetings were about. We had a meeting at 9:15. We usually have meetings every morning about what's going to happen during the day. Or this morning's meeting was about new clients that hired us this past week. So we want to make sure that we keep on top of that before the weekends start.
Yeah. And I'm listening to you. You're talking about financials. You're talking about piles of paperwork. So you manage this law firm. Growth Law Firm is your firm. So you're working as managing partner and practicing attorney and all of it?
Yes, with a smile on my face. I'm trying to manage it all, do it all. We have 7 attorneys and about 30-ish staff at any one time. And then we have our management team that's a director of operations, our office manager, our lead paralegal, and then our HR, director of human resources. So we try to base things on EOS. If you know, there's an attorney in Michigan, Mike Morse. He has Fireproof that's based on EOS.
Mm-hmm.
So we try to do things in the EOS system. So management hopefully is somewhat easier because you have the organization behind you that can help you achieve your goals and set your rocks and such every day, week, quarter, things like that. So, but to answer your question, yes, there's a lot that goes on in my life.
Yeah. Cool. Did you go to Marquette for law school as well, or was that
I did.
undergrad?
No, I
Okay.
went to Marquette Law. Yeah.
Okay. And did you plan to run your own law firm, to manage your own firm when you were in law school? Was this
Oh
ever
gosh,
the
no.
goal?
No way. No way. I remember we had one class, Professor Gingras, who taught the class. Jay Foonberg, I think, was the author of How to Start and Manage a Law Firm. And it was very, very basic, talking about, in essence, should you set up a checking account? Should you have a trust account? Just things like that. Are you going to buy a printer? Are you going to buy a computer? This is back in 1999, 2000, so things were a little bit
Yeah.
different. But still, it would have been much more helpful for me to have more of a business management class, knowing what I know now. So I went into undergrad being a music performance major. I was going to play jazz saxophone for the rest of my life. But that didn't go very far. So I went into then philosophy and then changed my major again to poli-sci with a business admin minor, and then went to law school thinking I would kind of bring those two together, the politics and law, because in Wisconsin, when you run for district attorney, you're appointed or then you're elected. So I thought I would kind of do that, but that didn't last very long. I took some criminal law classes and did not like. So then I changed and I interned or clerked for a law firm in Chicago that was a personal injury law firm and just said that this is awesome. I can help people, and I liked kind of the arguing. I liked the advocacy of it. So then I took a lot of advocacy classes in law school, trial ad, appellate ad, and that kind of took me to a firm that was a general practice firm, and I did all their trial work, their appearances, things like that, and I managed all kinds of unique cases in small claims court, large claims court, or collections all across the nation. And then after that, I went to work for a personal injury firm where, again, I was just an associate. 8 years after that, I have an origin story that I won't tell now because it's a long story, but we ran the numbers and we're like, okay, this makes sense. Let's see if we can, taking the risk or whatever the saying would be, but we Thelma and Louise jumped over the edge and we
Yeah.
survived. And here we are 14 years later with this practice. So, yeah, I didn't think I would be here, but now that I'm here, I really wish I would have done it sooner.
Yeah. Well, I appreciate what you're saying about taking the leap because being an attorney and practicing and enjoying it is completely different than managing your own firm. Even if you have other people who handle all the other parts, you're still involved in so many more decisions than you would have been as an associate or even as a high level, you know what I mean, senior level lawyer. So there is a really big difference there. So
Yeah.
I'm so glad that you said that. And then also you had mentioned the EOS system, which is Entrepreneur Operating System with Mike Morris and Fireproof. So I want to talk about that because you're practicing and then you start your own business and then now you're
Mm-hmm.
still learning, right? This
Oh,
EOS
oh yeah.
system, you were like, oh, wait, I don't know everything. Let me join this. Could you share a little bit of information about how and why lawyers have to always keep learning?
Oh gosh, and I just finished this one. The Four Obsessions of an Extraordinary Executive, a Leadership Fable.
Yeah.
Patrick Lenciani. I don't know who recommended this to me. Every morning I wake up and listen to a podcast. If it's the Wall Street Journal podcast, it's probably my go-to. And then a legal kind of management podcast or a legal marketing, lunch hour legal marketing. I love listening to that. It's once a week. And then when I walk my dogs at night, usually my wife and I walk together, and it's our date time. If I'm walking alone, then I will listen to like Gary Vee or something like that, marketing or management kind of podcasts. And then there's all the
Yeah.
Trial Lawyer Nation podcasts, but certainly always trying to figure out how you can improve yourself because what else is there? It's sitting still. It isn't really in my nature. So you have to really advance because everybody else is. And I think maybe I'm more competitive than I ever thought that I was, that I want to make sure that we're doing the best and we're doing right by our clients. We're being efficient, and I like technology. I like that kind of stuff. So, how can we use that in the practice with people to do the best for those who were injured because of somebody else's negligence? So, I enjoy it. I
Yeah.
enjoy learning all those things.
Okay. Well, I'm really enjoying this conversation because I know the podcast audience is about 70% law students and then
Hmm.
like 30% young lawyers. So 5 years practicing or less. And they're going to listen like, wait, Jon listens to Gary Vee? Because you two do not have the same personalities at all. But I think that's going to be great, right? Because I love Gary Vee, but also I have a sales background. You know, I'm like standing on a chair, rah, 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 let's go. And I don't think that you are that type, at least not, you know what I mean, every day, maybe in some meetings. And so I think people are going to listen and they're going to be like, you can just be well rounded, right? They'll realize it's not just one thing.
Oh, sure. That's a life lesson, right? Is that you
Mm-hmm.
have to be able to talk to different people, and that's what I really enjoy about the law is you never know who you're going to talk to. I mean, there are days when I'm talking to an example. I took a deposition of someone who is a heavy equipment operator, somebody who graduated from high school, and that's where his education stopped. And you have to be able to then talk to that person about what that person knows and identify with them so you can create a rapport, more blue collar type conversation, which there is some skill behind that. And last night I had dinner with doctor, lawyer, business owner, financial planner, and it was in honor of somebody who's 100 plus millionaire, who just sold a large company to to a hedge fund type thing. I mean, it's you just never know what's going to happen, and
Yeah.
being able to communicate with everyone is really important when you're a lawyer. And I think that's part of the fun of being a lawyer, is you can communicate and really learn from other people. I mean, one of the probably the wealthiest people that I will ever meet, I was an associate. This is about 23 years ago, and just was the smelliest person you'll ever know. And the smelliest farmer is a pig farmer.
Yeah.
I don't know why, but that's just a fact. And he had just come off the farm. He owned lots and lots and lots of property and was developing it and sold it. When you saw him walking down the road, you would never guess that he was a multi-cajillionaire.
Wow.
Drove an old truck that he used on the farm, and I remember his jeans were full of stains. Uh,
Not
didn't matter, but
fashionable.
yeah, not fashionable, not somebody walking down Michigan Avenue in Chicago.
Yeah.
But just a great guy, just a really super nice guy, and that kind of taught me that you can't judge a book by its cover. You should just never know. And this guy was paying tens and tens of thousands of dollars for his lawyers to help him figure out how to manage his millions upon millions of dollars that he was
Yeah.
worth. So I think that's important to understand, that when you graduate law school, you have to be able to have the ability to talk to people. It's different if you want to do maybe IP law where you're dealing with engineers and very unique. That's different than, or bankruptcy law, things like that. But if you're consumer facing, I think it's important to be able to talk to different people, and that's where it goes back to education and learning, and always kind of getting a sense of what's out there and how you can communicate with others.
Yeah, absolutely. Those are my favorite kind of millionaires. Those everyday millionaires that you wouldn't even like, they're not flashy, they're not drawing a whole
Mhm.
bunch of attention, just everyday millionaires.
Yeah,
That's
yeah,
what I aspire
yeah.
to.
Someday, I know, someday.
Yes,
Uh,
yes. So, John, you were saying that you manage and run this personal injury law firm. And so you guys have a lot of different practice areas. Okay, so personal injury includes car accidents, motorcycle accidents, ride share accidents, which is interesting with all of the Lyfts and Ubers out there,
mhm,
dog bites, and then even vaccine injuries.
mhm.
Would
Correct.
you talk to us a little bit about where did all of these different areas come from that you guys cover?
So the easy one to talk about are the car accidents and those kind of crashes, because that just happens all the time. We have people who are
Yeah,
bad drivers, and technology, your phone that I'm holding in my hand is a necessary evil, because there are people who are addicted to it and can't get off it, and they rear end somebody else, and that seems to be happening more and more frequently. Even though cars are safer than ever, there
yeah,
are more car crashes. So that's the easy one. And then from there, premises liability, slips and falls. If you fall because of somebody else's negligence, well, there you go. Um, if you have, we have a lot of people really in the past couple of weeks, which is kind of shocking, who are delivery people like Dashers or, Uber Eats, UPS, FedEx, who are delivering products to somebody, and then a dog comes and attacks them. Well,
mm,
if you don't control your dog, then you're responsible for the injuries that the dog caused. And in Wisconsin, it's strict liability. So the nursing home neglect is more unique, because you get into a different level where it's certainly expert driven. Medical malpractice or nursing home neglect, you have to have experts that will say, to a reasonable degree of medical probability or probability in my expertise, that this nurse or that director of nursing was negligent in their staffing or in how they took care of this resident, because it's just not something that everyday people can understand. We can't
yeah,
expect lay people on a jury to understand nursing home neglect. Well, it takes more skill. It also is a lot more expensive. Our expert costs for nursing home neglect and such are tens of thousands of dollars per case. So we're fronting the costs of that versus car crashes, where it averages between 500 and 2,000 per case. Anyway, and then the more unique one are the vaccine injuries. So we purchased a law firm a couple of years ago, which again is a whole nother podcast, because I never thought I would do that either.
yeah.
Purchased a law firm, it was about 4 years ago, called Samster, Conkle, and Safran, and one of their partners had passed away, the other partner retired, and then the last partner had some associates. The associates didn't want to take over the firm. So they went into the marketplace really and looked for somebody to buy their practice. So I talked with them, and I was looking at their books and saw all this income from this vaccine injury compensation program. I'm like, what the heck is that? That I'd never heard about that. And then got a class on it from the partner who handled that. And then I went to the boot camp and I went out to DC and learned about it. And it's like, holy cow, this actually exists. It's a program
Yeah.
that started in the 1980s and is very unique. There's one court in the world that handles it. It's the U.S. Court of Federal Claims. There are Department of Justice judges, I'll say, who are handling it. There's Department of Justice attorneys who are defending it. HHS is reviewing medical records. Then there's the petitioner's bar, like us, that are helping victims who are injured because of a vaccine. It's not COVID yet. Hopefully, Congress will get their act together and pass the bills to get COVID into the system. But right
Mm-hmm.
now, it's mostly flu vaccines that cause what's called like a cerva kind of injury, a shoulder injury as the result of vaccine administration. And you get kind of like a frozen shoulder kind of symptom, or you can have a more severe symptom like Guillain-Barré syndrome, GBS, where your body kind of shuts down. So those kind of symptoms that can be horrific. Some people have even more severe symptoms where you can have hearing loss, vision problems, things like that. With those cases, we file them with the U.S. Court of Federal Claims, and there's an administrative process, and that's it. So we have 2 attorneys and a paralegal that just do vaccine cases. And we have clients who are all over the world. We had a client in Siberia. We had a client in Honolulu. We have multiple, I don't know, almost every state in the nation where we've helped people.
That's amazing though, because I remember getting vaccines even when I was little. You always have to do things like before you go to a certain grade in Ohio, you have to show your
Mm-hmm.
card that you got vaccinated for this or that. And we do these things because we want to protect our bodies, but then sometimes there are accidents. And so this just speaks to how amazing and complicated it is to be a lawyer.
Oh,
Because
yeah.
somewhere someone needs to advocate for people who get hurt, even from getting a vaccine, right? It's not, the intent was good. The intent was to protect your body, but someone still got hurt
Yeah.
and it's a personal injury. So,
It's, one size does not fit all.
mm-hmm.
It's a vaccine that is out there, and it's one type of vaccine, but
Yeah,
everybody's different. Our chemical makeups are pretty similar, but they are different. So that
yeah,
vaccine may affect you differently than it affects me, and that's why they created this program, which was, in retrospect, pretty smart. 75 cents of vaccines that are administered go into this fund, and there's billions of dollars in this fund
wow.
to help pay for victims and attorneys and things, the administration of it. So it's certainly out there, and I bet there are more people that are injured because of vaccines, but they just figure, my shoulder hurts,
Right.
I'll get through it, and it'll be fine. But the petitioner's bar is trying to do a lot more education to say, hey, this is a thing. And because of COVID, hopefully people are understanding that you really need to understand what you're putting into your body, and be an advocate for yourself.
Yeah, absolutely. In 2023, I interviewed someone, Victoria Collier, and she has a whole episode about how to buy and sell law firms. It's fascinating work. I never considered all of the work and effort it takes. I was like, why would someone want to sell their law firm? And then she loves to buy law firms. I was like, why would you buy a law firm?
Yeah,
And you just gave a great example, to bring in a different practice area, to bring in some experts, and grow your firm is the reason you would buy another firm.
yeah. And that was somewhat by accident. Again, going back to the beginning of our conversation about learning, it's like, oh,
Mm-hmm.
this is fascinating to learn, and I've gone to the boot camp, I've gone to DC and met with a number of different attorneys about this, and we talked to people in that bar association that are extremely helpful and very, very giving. And that's kind of the fun part about the plaintiffs' bar is in Wisconsin, our Association for Justice is extremely generous and very, very supportive of each other. And same thing with the petitioners bar for the vaccine claims, very supportive and very giving. So
Yeah,
that's nice because we can hopefully that rising tide raises all the ships.
absolutely. So, my last question here, John, you also are a podcast host. Excuse me, podcast host. You host the Growth Gets It podcast. And why did you create that show and what were you hoping to get out of the podcast?
Man, so to be honest with you, I like talking. So maybe that's why I just like talking. But let me go way back in time.
Yeah.
So back when I was an associate, I had the luxury and my boss, my mentor, um, really let me run my cases and my practice as like a subdivision of the firm. And I was able to market myself as Jon Groth as part of this bigger firm. And I did that selfishly to some extent because I wanted to show them, hey,
Yeah.
I can do this and I'm bringing in my own cases. Therefore, I'm generating my own revenue so I can go back to them at the end of the year and say, hey, don't forget about me. I made this much money for the firm based on, my own internal marketing. So I would send out, letters to, I would meet with doctors, send out letters. I created a blog. I would speak about blogs back when blogs were cool.
Yeah.
Um, and throughout the years, I've always tried to keep up with what's the latest. So now it's turned into, we have a TikTok channel, Instagram, Facebook, certainly LinkedIn, and then obviously it's podcasts.
Yeah.
So, and then with the podcasts, we go and we create snippets off that and put it on to our social media channels too. So it really kind of came naturally because we've always tried to do that kind of forward-facing consumer education kind of practice.
Yeah.
It's fun to talk to people. So we've had different business owners from around the area who have come in because it's fun to talk to somebody who runs an IT company and learning about, well, what do you do all day? You sit behind your desk. They're
Yeah.
shooting each other with Nerf guns while they're creating people's websites. I mean, that's a fascinating day. And then living in a land of Legos. Their office is full of Legos. I mean, who would have thought that that's what you could do as an
Mm-hmm.
adult and be really successful? I mean, that's pretty cool. So that's an example of people that we try to interview, so we can show the world that, hey, there's lots of possibilities and lots of potential out there if you want to learn.
Yeah, absolutely. Even listening to you, I'm feeling some appreciation for my own show because I talked to a guy who's called a brick artist, and he was working at a big law firm in New York, and he would go home and to de-stress, he would play with Lego kits. And then he
Okay.
started making statues and sculptures, and then people started paying him for it. And he was like, "Oh well, I've replaced my salary, so I'll just go do Legos." And I was like, "What?" But I never even thought of this podcast as kind of continuously learning. I'm just always curious. I like to talk,
Hmm.
but I'm also always curious. I'm like, what are you doing? What's that? What's that?
Yeah.
So I think it's
Yeah.
cool that we both kind of had the same like motivation to start the shows. All right, Jon. Well, thank you so much for spending a few minutes with me, and I'll talk to
Awesome.
you later.
Okay. Thank you.